The moon waxes and wanes, and with it move the tides and sometimes werewolves that can be seen by the highly imaginative. The moon has phases because its path is cyclical around the Earth. The Earth obscures the sun from the moon, causing the amount of reflection off its silver-gray surface to vary over the course of around 28 days. The moon reminds me that we go through phases as well. The obvious phases we go through are like with the solar bodies. As the sun rises, so do most of us also rise to attend to the coming day. And as it sets, for most of us, we eventually fade off to the dreamlands. And the seasons themselves are a consequence of our path around the sun. Further from the equator, the more prominent seasons become as we cycle through winter to spring to summer to fall and back to winter again. Holidays come and go according to the same repeating progression, acting as reminders of the traditions and rituals that are part of our individual cultures and lives. Not all phases are cyclical, though. We go through phases of life, for instance. Infant, toddler, preschooler, teenager, young adult, adult, senior. And we change jobs and careers, each a new phase. We might get married or divorced. With each phase, there is a transition that we must pass through as we change from being in one mode to another. What prompted me to come up with this topic is a phase that I went through very recently, and is a phase often repeated in my life. It was short, but not very pleasant. A lot of stressful things were going on in my life right now, and I woke up one morning with my mind racing about a host of things, many unrelated. I couldn't focus on any one thing. My temples were tense, and my skin felt like it was just crawling off my bones, a strong symptom of my very restless mindset. I got myself to the gym, but even there I found myself listless and distracted, neither of which are very good states to be in when I'm lifting weights. So I simply left halfway through my workout routine and I just was resigned to it. I'll tell you, a lot of self-blame was going on in my head for the many things that were long past and even had yet to happen. A lot of wishing and hoping was coming from my beast of a brain as well. And I realized after a bit of walking and many misfired attempts at meditation that this was just a phase I was going through. I've been through this phase before. It happens a lot when external factors that I can't quite manage come together at once. And in this situation, I also noted that I had run out of my normal vitamin C pills, nor was I getting my regular levels of iron. And that's when it clicked. The observer in my head made note of these little points, and the frenetic beast of my brain actually started to calm down. There was a solution. Eat a steak. Add some high vitamin C veggies in with the mix. Take a break from looking at the computer. Harder was set aside the fear for a few moments. Recognize that there are a few things that I can't do anything about right now or even later, possibly not even for a few weeks. And by then, after a few weeks have passed, things will be different. Now, getting past these minor hurdles was enough to calm me down. I was reminded that on days where I'm stressed like I was, and probably diminished of vitamins and minerals, there were a lot of things I can't control, especially in my own mind. For the phase I was in, I felt life was overwhelming. But being overwhelmed in itself is just a phase. It too shall pass. Being overwhelmed is not a permanent state, anything more than a full moon or being a teenager or a werewolf. For some of us, it may happen to us so often that we forget that the phase will pass, because right when we think it should pass, we become overwhelmed again with new circumstances that bring on new worries. But it's all the same. Worry happens again and again. Feeling overwhelmed happens again and again. I think it's important for us to recognize that while there are phases in our lives like being worried or overwhelmed that aren't technically cyclical, they certainly are reoccurring. We just may not see the bigger picture of how it's the same set of sensations brought on by similar conditions, but which we end up interpreting differently based on the surrounding context. Being overwhelmed while on travel seems to be different than when being overwhelmed at work. Being sad when someone breaks up with you seems different than being sad at a funeral. But they aren't really that different. It's your interpretation of what's happening that makes them seem more different than they are, emotionally speaking. We humans are prone to thinking that the little more pressing things in our lives are much bigger and far more unique than they actually are. If we take the time to reflect on, and even better, keep track of our various phases, we can start to see patterns more readily. And this is one reason that I track my mood, my diet, and my exercise over time. I've seen many patterns created in my brain over the years. And for instance, if I don't have enough iron content in my diet, I get listless and listlessness tends to lead to depressive episodes and social isolation. I'd rather avoid that, thank you very much. So I adjust my diet accordingly when needed. So here's my suggestion for you if you're in a state of ill content or stress. First, recognize that this is just a phase you're going through. It's not lasting. Now, it may get worse, that's true, but it's not going to be sustained forever. And if you get to a point where you think it's going to last forever, that should really be a massive indicator that you need to make some massive changes. You can start by asking, what action would I need to take to exit this phase? Start small and work your way to bigger solutions. Small is always better when you're starting off on the wrong foot. Take your time, take it slow, and leave room for some forgiveness. In order to get better at recognizing the nature of phases in your life, take a record. As I said, I track my mood, my diet, my exercise, and my journal. And I track a host of other thoughts too, because something else might cause me to see previously unforeseen patterns of behavior. So I keep recording everything of relative significance. You can do something similar. Keep a journal, track notes in a spreadsheet, or just shoot yourself an email at the end of the day with a quick summary. Use my suggestions if you'd like: mood, diet, and exercise. Just make sure that you don't keep the information inside of your head. Your beast of a brain will distort your thoughts, if not outright simply cause you to forget them. Even if you never read your journal again, having these details externalized will help you in the long run. By allowing your brain the opportunity to let things go, it'll actually be better at remembering them. And if not, you can always refer back to the journal itself. Make this external expression and phase tracking, as it were, a regular, possibly daily occurrence. The act of writing a journal entry in and of itself could be looked at as you purposely choosing what phase you want to be in, a writing phase or a non-writing phase. And that alone should help you with your perspective. That is, of course, unless it's a full moon and you're forced to turn into a werewolf, in which case you should really go see a doctor. There are some phases in life that need a little more help than even journaling can solve. Recognize that fact, seek help, be at peace, and keep journaling a little bit more. Thanks for listening, and cheers.